Welcome to the Basic Bee podcast, a show for the wannabe SEO savvy service providers among us, for the coaches and consultants who dream of becoming known for their storytelling skills, not to mention the solopreneurs who straight up need to master all things social proof to increase sales. After a little reluctantly fully committing to this online world of business, I quickly realized I needed to get people to come to me. I needed to tell them I was here and how I could support them. I dove headfirst into social proof, which led me to SEO, which led me to storytelling. And now it gives me great joy to share what I've learned with other business owners so they skip the hard stuff and ease straight into sales. This podcast gives you expert insights, actionable takeaways, and casual convos with some of the online world's best and brightest experts and strategists. I think that's enough of an intro, so here we go. Welcome back to the Basic Bee podcast. I am so happy to have you here, as always, of course, and I've got another amazing guest to introduce you to. I have Rachael Weaver, and we are going to be talking we're going to see what happens because we're actually both manifesting generators, so we're probably going to be sticking to like marketing with human design and maybe some messaging stuff, but we'll see where this goes. Before I bring her on, of course, I'm going to give you a quick intro. Rachael blends human design and conversion copywriting to help spiritual entrepreneurs create a cohesive, wildly irresistible, and deeply aligned brand voice so they can speak their truth unapologetically. She's helped women sell out programs on the first round, sell high-ticket one-to-one with ease, and create massive impact with a simple message. Her clients create their next-level brand voice as they step further into their alignment and clearly speak their soul's message with confidence. Simply put, she's your soul-aligned messaging coach. Hi, Rachael.
Hi.
I am thrilled you're here. You were giggling, I saw when I was talking about us both being manifesting generators.
Well, I haven't heard my bio. I wrote it forever, and I'm like, wow, that's a really good bio.
Bravo, well done. It's always so weird when you hear somebody else like talk about you. It's like, oh, I'm kind of cool. This is neat.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, did I write that? That sounds great.
You sure did. All right, let me give you this first question, and then we'll get into like wherever we're going to go today.
All right.
So there's no wrong answer, but the question is, which do you believe is the most important for sales? SEO, storytelling, or social proof?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think I'd probably have to say storytelling.
Mm-hmm. Say more.
Yeah, because I think it establishes authority.
Yeah.
More than the other two, and I think authority is really important when you're marketing your business.
It's so critical. Yeah, you're like, I know this.
I know.
We know this. It's facts. Yeah, I agree. I think that it's so cool hearing different people's answers, but I agree. Like storytelling is, I would say, kind of a subtle way to create and solidify that authority.
Yeah. I think most people feel more comfortable with that type of authority, like being able to just share your story and what you know and your own talent and genius versus some of the other ones can feel a little bit more salesy sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true. I like it. All right, let's jump into this. So I want to walk us in with kind of a broad question. So for anyone who is new to human design, could you give us a quick lay of the land? And we can use me as an example. So I often will say like, I'm a 3/5 manifesting generator, but can you translate what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay. So human design is like, it's astrology, I Ching, the Kabbalah. It's like all these things put together. And it gives you kind of a blueprint of how your energy works. And there are 5 types. Manifesting generators, 1. Then we have manifester, generator, projector, and reflector. And they all have a different, it relates to your aura. So how your aura is perceived by others. Like projectors can see, like it's very penetrating. I often use my husband as an example. It's like when he looks in your eyes, you feel like, oh God, you're seeing my soul, right? That's how a projector feels when I look in your eyes.
That's deep.
Deep, right? Mani-gens, the manifesting generators, I'm a mani-gen too. And we're the people that like cannot for the life of us pick one thing and just stick with it. We just can't. It's impossissible. And
just look at the podcast, like art, if you're wondering. And the first question that I ask people, like, I can't.
Yeah, you can't. Like, you can't pick. You just, So our genius really is in the fact that we can't pick and that we have this ability to go down rabbit holes and pull things together that people would have never thought to put together. And do you want me to go through like all the types?
Yeah, if you want to. I mean, I have like a couple of ideas of where we could take this, but Let's go down the rabbit holes.
Okay. Generators are the mastery. So they're here to hone in and master some like one thing. It's a process generally. Sometimes generators, they're like, I can't pick one thing. And I'm like, you can, you just haven't found that thing yet, right? Or they will sometimes get it into their head about that thing. They'll hit a plateau where they're like, I feel like I've lost passion. So therefore I need to change my mind. No, you need to like go all in on that passion and really deepen your knowledge of it and mastery of it. Cause that's what you're here to do, is to really master something. The projectors, like I said, they're very penetrating. They're the guides. They're the people that really see a unique solution and a way to solve a problem. They're known for their like system, and a system versus a process. A process is a step 1, step 2, step 3. A system is more like a table holding a tabletop up. You don't have to go through the legs in any way. You just have to have all 3 in order to have the tabletop result. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I follow.
Manifestors are known for their vision and where they're taking people. And I usually use like train stations. You're helping people one train station at a time to get to this big vision. And then reflectors are known for their community and the way that they bring people together and where they can share their wisdom, no matter what it is. It could be random or it could be in a specific niche.
I love that. So those are the different types. So like how I said 3-5 manifesting generator, the words are the type, and then the numbers, that's the profile, right?
That's the profile. And it's kind of like your personality. It adds flavor to things, if you will.
Yeah.
And there's 6 lines, and you're going to have 2 lines, a conscious and an unconscious. And the unconscious, you're not as aware of. It's something that like, once you read what your unconscious line is, you're like, oh, that totally makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But you're not necessarily would identify with it on your own, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then your conscious is like the one that you're like, I get stuck on this one all the time. Like the 4th line, and like, the 4th line, I'm a 4/6, and it drives me bonkers all the time, but I love my unconscious line.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm actually going to make sure that I link to the podcast that just went live this week, where I was on with Chantel Andercastle. I hope I'm saying her name correctly. And we went through this. Like, she had me on because I'm a 3-5.
That's awesome.
And so we got to like break that down. So if you want to geek out more on this, I'll make sure to link to that. Of course, Rachel has her podcast, which we're going to link to as well. But yeah, like rabbit holes.
So many rabbit holes.
It's fun. So many rabbit holes. So I don't think I've ever asked you this before, but what's your favorite thing about human design?
Favorite thing. I think it gives you permission to really be yourself. Because when you look and you understand what the chart's saying, you're like, that's what I wanted to do. That's how I want to be. That's how I want to show up. And the world just tells us all these different things of what we're supposed to be. And sure, you can give yourself permission and not feel like you need a chart to tell you that. But I know for me, it was incredibly validating and permission giving to just be myself. And this was a way to look at something and go, oh, yeah, that totally makes sense. That is me. So I feel like it's like that permission, that validation for really who you are.
I could not agree more. And that's really, this podcast truly is like my 3-5 manifesting generator self, like showing up.
Yeah.
So I could not agree with that more. And one of the missions that I have with the podcast, really the core of it, is helping people get back to who they are. Mm-hmm. So I was like stoked that you were going to come on the podcast, because this is one way that, like you said, you read about the profile and the types and all that kind of stuff. And once I did that, I was like, oh, I have been doing that. Oh, that's like a cool thing. That's a thing that I can lean into. Okay. Yeah. Just like you said, it gave me permission.
Yeah, exactly.
What's something that you notice like your students and clients either need to hear once they get into understanding their human design more, or something that's like a consistent aha, or I can probably just say that and you have some stuff coming to mind. What if you had an easy way to bust objections you commonly hear? Well, case studies can be that thing for you. Recently, my case study client, Brenna, shared she had her biggest launch ever, and she largely credits case studies for that launch success. Each time she heard an objection from a potential student, she was able to simply point them to the case study. She let her students do the talking and the objection busting. I mean, what could be easier than that? Maybe hiring me for a done-for-you case study is an option that's just not on the table right now. Cool. you might be interested in my case study training program. It's specifically designed for solopreneurs, service providers who are wearing all the hats and just need to know what to do and exactly how to do it, so they have a case study on their site they can be proud of and point people to, just like Brenna did. Doors open April 22nd, and we officially kick things off on April 29th. All the info is below.
I mean, I feel like anytime I tell someone, like, here's kind of what your messaging should be about based on your chart, they're like, well, that's what I want to talk about. Again, they don't give themselves permission to talk about that because they think their messaging needs to look like a certain way or be a certain way based on what everybody says messaging is, right? Like they say that, oh, you have to talk to your client pain points, you have to understand your niche, like all these pieces. And while some of that's important, most of the time, if you just understand how you want to communicate, you're going to cover all your bases. And you don't need to like understand or know a lot of that other stuff.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a lot of noise not in the realm of human design that human design gives you clarity and, like you said, permission around. Is there anything that you see in the human design world that you see other people talking about where it either like makes you roll your eyes or it just kind of grates on your nerves, or you feel like things are being shared in maybe not the most accurate or best way for people?
I think people get stuck in their human design. So they almost like use it as an excuse. Like, I'm a projector, I don't have to do the work. And that's going to get you into trouble in terms of you can't grow a business if you're not going to do some work. Yes, there's a way to do it that honors your energy, that allows you to show up your way. But using human design as an excuse to not do something, I think is where people are using it against themselves. And this is a lot of what I hear from projectors. They're getting stuck. Like, they hate that they're a projector, but yet they use it as an excuse why they can't show up. Like, oh, I have to wait for the invitation to post on social media. No, you don't. No, no, you don't. Go out and you share. That's your platform. That is your place to share whatever the heck you want. Sure, you need maybe an invitation to coach someone. Yes, because then you're in their aura, you're in their space. But your platform is by people following you. That's an invitation to share your knowledge.
That's a good reframe. Yeah, because it's almost like if you use your human design as this shield, you're not tapping into the magic of it. Because one thing for me, I think it was being with a manifesting generator and maybe having the sacral authority, or you can probably tell me more about this. I've read so much stuff and it's like hard for me to keep everything compartmentalized. But one thing I know that works for me is asking myself yes or no questions, or having someone else ask me yes or no questions, just to like really help me tap into like, what is my gut? What is my intuition saying? And then learning to listen to that and go forward with it. And the other thing too is like, we have loads of ideas. You and I collaborated on a couple different things and we were like, this, and it was really fun.
Yeah.
But you can see like the manifesting generator energy of just like bing, 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 bing. I've learned to let myself just have those ideas and not get frustrated that I don't act on them immediately.
Yeah.
And what's been really fun and brilliant, I think, for me, and I heard this from somebody else, so I can't take credit for it, but it's like just listing out those ideas, writing them down somewhere, putting them down on digital or actual paper, and then looking for that validation and confirmation out in the world. So like I had an idea for, I really wanted to help people with blogs and SEO, but I didn't act on it. I was like, I don't quite know what this is going to look like. Well, 2-3 months later, I had 2 different clients who were like, it would be really cool if you created like a course about blogging and SEO. Now I have the blogging and SEO email course because I waited, and then they kind of helped me figure out that final piece. And I was like, go forth, create.
Yeah. And most people get impatient in waiting for something to come around. And the other thing I feel like, many gens are really notorious for starting things. And I have a one-to-one client right now, and she's a many gen, but she also has the gate of starting like in her sun gate. So she's all about starting things. And this girl, like, so many different spokes on her business. Like, girl, she's trying to do all the things all at one time. And she knows that this is like probably putting more on her plate than she really needs. She knows that like this is probably making things harder, but that's literally like the energy that she has all the time. Like, she can't help it. So it's about learning, okay, if this is my energy, how can I use it to my advantage? And how can I hone the energy so that it's working for me and not against me. And against her would be like just starting all these things and never finishing anything. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, we're like, okay, well, let's start something. Let's see how all these different pieces fit together, first of all. And then, okay, where do we want to focus first? And then let's just go in on that for the next month. And then we're going to switch and do another one and do another one. And so we're building on all this starting energy so that it's actually creating momentum instead of stifling.
Yeah, it's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity, especially once you see that.
Yeah.
Like when you go out and get I know you have resources, but like when you go out and figure out what you are, like how we keep saying like we're 4-6 mani-gen or 3-5 mani-gen. Once you figure that out and you get to read about it and some of this stuff like starts making sense and you see those permission slips on the paper, it's like, oh, okay, how can I then use it, or what can I take from this, or what can I learn from this, or how can I actually like embody this better?
Yeah.
So on that note, with our messaging, you actually came into the case study training program last round and you did this wonderful workshop about really like how to market the case study. It was like through that lens, but how you can really market with your, I can't remember if you did the profile or the type. It was such a great workshop, and I need to go back and watch it again. Actually, as I'm saying this, I'm like, I need to go back and remember like what you said. But can you speak a little bit to that? Just like how we can use those different elements and figure out what that permission slip is that we need for marketing.
Yeah. So there's a few different aspects that I look at primarily. I mean, there's a lot of information in the chart. Like you can go, I mean, it's all about how you can eat in your environment. And like there's so much in the human design chart. There's just a few aspects that I look at mainly for communication. And your unique selling point, the thing that you're known for, really comes from your type. It's how we're kind of structuring your messaging, right? Like the mani-gen's known for pulling things together. The manifestor's known for their vision, looking at that. And then from there, we kind of look at like, what is the flavor of my brand voice and how can I show up and speak more articulate in a way that feels good to me? And that's when we're looking at like the throat center. And I just came up with this analogy actually like yesterday when I was writing some new content. I'm like, ooh, this could be really good. And I haven't really talked about it. So maybe this will come out a little jumbled. But your throat is the ice cream flavor. So what flavor do you want to show up with? And depending on what gates and whether or not it's defined or whatever, it's the flavor of your voice. The profile is the sprinkles that you put on top. It's the personality. It's like, are you gummy bears or are you chocolate chips? Like,
I love this.
And then your Mercury gate is the vehicle in which the ice cream comes to you. So it's the cone that you pick or the cup. Those are the three aspects that you're really looking at to understand how are you delivering this message to the world.
That is so cool.
I didn't talk about that at all in your workshop, but I don't know. I wanted to say it now.
I'll make sure I go back and like, she said something really smart. You know what? I could just link to the podcast. That's what I'll do.
There we go.
I really like that because analogies really are helpful, especially I feel like for me. So I'm guessing maybe for like many of us mani-gens, it's probably very, very helpful to be able to like, this is what I'm trying to tell you. Here's all the pieces and like, here's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. So depending on if your throat is defined or undefined, it's just going to flavor things in a different way.
Yeah. And there's no real like right or wrong way to do things. And even like once you figure out what your human design is and what that looks like and all the different elements like you were hinting at, it doesn't mean that you're like, you've been doing life wrong or you're going to do life right now or anything. Yeah. It's just kind of like, what are some of the clues we can look for and how can we take those and use those for things like marketing, for things like writing copy, for things like even probably developing our offer suite.
Yeah, exactly.
That is so cool. While we're having this conversation, is there anything that's like bubbling up that you're like, oh, I want to make sure I talk about this, or anything you're thinking of tying together?
Well, I think all of this always comes back to being authentic and yourself. Like when people say you have to be your authentic self, I know I go, well, what the hell does that mean? Who is my authentic self and how do I show up like that? And there's so many stories that we have from our past, from like all the things, right? And then we have a couple that with the incoming of this is how it should be done. This is how you should market, confusing all of it. And so you become diluted in your messaging. You become like a watered down version because either the stories that you've grown up with and were told about who you are, and with the incoming of like, this is how you should do it. When Being authentic is looking at those stories and going, no, that's not me. This is who I am, knowing who you are, and looking at the other information of how you should do it and be like, no, I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. Because honestly, every way can work. Every strategy can work. It just, is it right and aligned for you? And trusting in that process. I think so many newbie entrepreneurs don't trust the process. They're like, why am I not making money yet? Or why does this feel so hard? Da, da, da. It takes a lot of experimenting in the beginning. Whether you're a third line or not, it just takes experimenting. You have to trust the process, throw shit out there, see what happens, and take the information, adjust, and take another step. And I think we just get so caught up in that it has to look a certain way when it just has to be you.
Yeah, it does. So something that I'm thinking about as you're sharing that is like, how can we check that? So earlier I mentioned asking yes and no, and also just like letting these ideas bubble up and making note of them and then looking for kind of like a validating point out there in the world, just with like someone saying something or me seeing something. How can we check that where maybe we feel like something is authentic, or we're questioning if it's authentically us, or we just have a question and it doesn't seem super clear? Are there ways we can check that?
I want to say like the results that you're getting, but that's not always the case, because some people can do the unaligned thing and still get results, where somebody else can do the unaligned thing and not get any results, right? Like it can be both ways. But I think to really check in with yourself, I think it comes back to, are you building the business the way you want? Is there any shoulding happen? I should do this, I should do that. And it's always being intentional with what you're doing. If you're intentionally saying, well, I'm going to try this strategy, I'm going to see what works, then that's in alignment, right? You're following the strategy and authority. You're being intentional about that decision. And eventually you'll figure out like, ooh, that felt terrible and that feels better. We're going to go in that direction.
Yeah.
So I think if you don't know what your strategy and authority are, that is, I think the best way to do it is like, are you being intentional with your decisions and what you're doing in your business? Or are you doing it because someone said you should?
Mm-hmm. And something else as you're talking that I'm thinking of is with SEO. I always start off with 3 questions. Who do you help? How do you help them? What do you want to be known for? And they sound really simple, but they're actually kind of like, triggering is not the right word, but they really make people stop, because it's like, I know this, but what, huh? Like, I've never had anybody ask me about this. So like, let me take a minute and think about it.
Yeah. Or they'll give you a really vague answer. Do you get vague answers?
It's just like so generic, where it's like, I've seen this on 15 websites. I know who you follow.
Exactly. Like, what do you want to be known for? Health coach. Like, no. No.
No, we can't. We're not. Like, give me something more. Like, what's the next layer underneath that? So there's definitely that. And then I feel like another way that people could check it, like if they've been listening to the podcast, we know that I talk about social proof. And I also start people with social proof. That's step 1 with keyword research in my world.
Yeah.
So if you're seeing social proof that is maybe from people that you don't necessarily want to continue to attract, like that could be like a good, you're at a stoplight and it's like, do we want to go? Like, is this green? Is this like a yellow light where it's like, I don't know, maybe like I could kind of work with them? Or is this like a glaring red light where it's like, yeah, no, we don't want any more of these people?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I talk all the time about like dream, like level 10 clients versus level 1 clients and the problems that you're solving for them. Like level 10, you're solving problems that you freaking love to solve. They like light you up to solve this problem for someone. Versus level 1s is like, well, I can help you with that, I guess. I don't really, fine. Right? Like, it's like,
Yeah. Like, sure, I could do that.
Yeah. We don't want client studies. We don't want any testimonials from these people. We don't want any of it. Like, we don't want that on the internet telling anyone that we do this. Right. I liken it to when I was in photography. I had a photography business, and the advice was always, don't put a picture on your website that you would want to take again, right? So if you are putting pictures that are, like I was a documentary photography, so I wouldn't put pictures of superposed people on my website, because that would attract people that want that, right? Versus putting all journalistic style stuff on my website. It's kind of the same when you get up to talking about coaching and that kind of thing. You don't want to talk about a problem you don't want to solve.
Period. The end.
The end. Don't do it.
Don't do it. This was something that came up with my massage practice too,
Mm-hmm.
where it's kind of like, I could help lots of people. I could relieve pain. I could just make someone feel relaxed for like an hour.
Yeah.
But what do I really want to do? So I got really specific. And again, this like so very much comes back to SEO, the copy that you're putting out there, the messaging that's out there. I really wanted to help people who had migraines, who were desk jockeys and like sitting in a chair all day long. I wanted to help those people, chronic pain. So those are the things that I put on my website. Those were the emails that I was sharing. That's what I would even talk about, you know, with my clients in real life, or if they were trying to send me someone. It's like, you know, I want to send my mom to you and she's in town. Okay, cool. What kind of massage does she like? What do you think she's looking for? Oh, she just wants to like, you know, go to a spa. Okay, we'll go to a spa. Here are a couple of great ones. Like she's going to have a better experience there. I'm going to be able to fill my client list, my schedule with people who want the work that I have to offer. And that really lights me up, like you're saying.
Well, and I think when you're working only with those people solving the problems you really love to solve, that's when you get really great client testimonials, because those are the people that are like, oh, this was amazing. You've helped me so much. That's what builds the momentum even more in the direction of what you want to do.
Yeah, that's true. Because even you're seeing that like, oh, I can do this thing that I really, really like. I can make a living this way. I can only attract these people. Yeah, that's a really good point, because I feel like so many times we're like, we need to make rent, or we just feel like we should be helping everyone that comes in the door. And it's like, no, if you stop saying yes to those clients that are kind of like an kind of thing, or yeah, sure, I could help you. You make way for the people that are the dreamboat clients, like you like to call them.
Yeah, exactly.
I have another question and then we'll probably like wrap this up, but are there different pieces of human design that you feel like get pulled in at different levels of business? So someone starting out versus like 5 years in versus 10 years in?
I would say not really. I think you can go as deep as you want into human design. I have several clients that are like, well, where can I find my ideal client in my chart? I'm like, well, you can't. I mean, you can find some hints, but you're not going to get like, your person is 45 and older. Like that's not
right.
Not exactly how it works. But you can go down whatever rabbit hole you want and really understand your chart. I think it does, if you're interested in it, if it's like lighting you up to go down that rabbit hole, then studying your human design chart will ultimately absolutely help you in your business. But it's not a necessity in any way. So I feel like if you know the basics, the kind of that we talked about, the type, the throat, the Mercury, that kind of stuff, and how you want to communicate, like that's all you really need in terms of your messaging and even creating offers and creating the structure in your business, because you're going to learn strategy and authority on your own with that. And that's honestly all you really need. So it kind of depends on like your own curiosity. Is your own curiosity pulling you down to learn more, or are you satisfied with what you got now?
And I feel like you bring up a really good point too, that human design, in my eyes at least, seems to really be about figuring out who we are and getting closer to that authentic self, or getting closer to the things that make us happy, light us up, make us feel good about the life that we're living and the things that we're doing. And by really getting closer to that version of you and getting more clarity around that, you then end up attracting those ideal clients. So it's not about figuring them out. It's about starting with you first.
Absolutely. I love that point. Yeah, exactly. The more that you are you and showing up, like I said, solving the problems that you love to solve, showing up as your vibrant self, the more you attract the right people.
Boom. I love it. Okay, I want you to tell people like where they can find you, but make sure to tell them about your podcast.
Well, the podcast is on hold.
But there's good stuff that they can go back and binge for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So it's Be You Babe on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and on YouTube. You can come into my free Facebook group, which is the Aligned Copy Posse. The website is weaverco.us. I just like totally redesigned it, all the things. And then Instagram, I am Rachael Weaver.
This has been really awesome. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing all your wisdom. Like I said, I'll have all of the links below. We will check you next time. That was really something, wasn't it? Let that really sink in and guide you toward being the answer to even more Googled questions. Thanks so much for joining me this episode. you are the reason this show exists and that it keeps growing. You know, thanks to all those follows and reviews. If you know someone who could benefit from what was shared, send it to them. We don't do shy around here. If you thought of clarifying or follow-up questions while listening, you know what to do. Say hi on Instagram. Check the show notes for all the things that were mentioned, and I'll talk to you soon, friend. Looking for an introvert-friendly way to sell, or even just want to stop feeling so salesy? I've got just the thing for you. Case studies. Yeah, I know. I talk about them all the time, but there's a good reason for it. Case studies are the ultimate marketing resource for introverts and service providers. There's no better way to show someone the exact experience they could have working with you. They get to see themselves reflected in the story they're reading. They start to feel more connected to you and your approach, and they see the results that are possible for them too. There's absolutely no salesy feelings anywhere near case studies. You can get my exact step-by-step process, all sorts of resources, checklists, templates, video trainings, live calls with me, and so much more inside my case study training program for solopreneurs. Doors open April 22nd, and we officially kick things off on April 29th. Click the link below for all the details.